Book Page, and I'm here with Julie James, the author of A Lot Like Love, to talk a little bit about her latest release. We are at the RWA conference in New York City. So, Julie, could you just give me a little brief plot summary of A Lot Like Love?
A Lot Like Love. The basic plot summary is a woman who owns a wine store, who also happens to be a billionaire heiress, agrees to work with the FBI in exchange for getting her twin brother out of prison. So she agrees to bring an FBI agent as her date to this exclusive wine tasting party so that he can bug the office of the person that they're targeting.
And this book is set in Chicago, which is where you live, right?
Yes.
What do you like the most about writing about your hometown?
Less research. First of all, I like to write in big cities. 3 of my 4 books are set in Chicago, the 4th is set in Los Angeles. My books, I think, have sort of a fast-paced feel to them, a lot of hustle and bustle, and so I think the big city location goes really well with that. So I think, writing in big cities, period, is a good fit for me. Chicago's great because I live there. I use actual locations in my book. And it helps me to get the details right. Little things like I actually did private tours of both the Chicago FBI office and the Chicago U.S. Attorney's office. And having actually seen the locations and what the offices look like and what an interview room looks like, so when they don't say interrogation room, what an interview room looks like, and little details with the command room, like they showed me everything. It was great. It really helps bring those locations alive in my book, I think.
One of the things I really like about your books is the dialogue between the leads is always really witty and sparkling and just fun to read. I know you've been a screenwriter and an attorney. How do you, do you have any techniques that, kind of keep that skill honed?
Yeah, so my background in writing, I started with screenplays, so I always have had a focus on dialogue and like sort of the back and forth banter. I think, of course we're all reading a lot of books when you write, and that's something that authors should definitely do. But I also think that if you really want to focus on your dialogue, movies and television are great for that because, sort of that Friends, Seinfeld, Modern Family, snappy dialogue, particularly since I write lighter, more humorous, sarcastic type books. Just listening to, the dialogue in films and in TV and everything, that really helps. So.
And I've read that you're a fan of kind of screwball comedies from
Yes.
30s and 40s?
Yes, the black and white romantic comedies. Yes, Cary Grant, His Girl Friday, anything with Cary Grant, really, which is also very dialogue focused and sort of that rat-a-tat, the back and forth between the hero and heroine. So yes, that's another thing that definitely has sort of cultivated my interest in dialogue, is sort of my love for those films.
And do you have a favorite love story, film, book, whatever?
I like a lot of romantic comedies. To say a favorite, Pretty Woman's a classic.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know that you can go wrong with that one. When I say, I really, really like An American President as well. But I like a lot of them.
Since we're here at RWA, do you have, were you a lifelong fan of romance? How did you know you wanted to get into writing romance novels?
I kind of fell into writing romance, actually, because my background is in screenwriting. I wrote, my first book was actually originally written as a screenplay that was optioned by a pretty big producer. When the film ultimately wasn't made and the option expired, my film agent said, you should think about turning this into a book, to which my response was, a book, but that's like 300 pages, because screenplays are like 120 pages and they're much shorter. So I gave it a shot, and it worked. And when we sold the book to Berkeley, in one of my first conversations with my editor, I called it a romantic comedy. And she said, well, we don't actually call it that. In the literary world, this is a contemporary romance. And I said, but I've never really read a romance. And she said, well, you've written one. So I kind of decided I better learn something about this genre that I've now written in. And so that really was when I started reading romance, after I found out that I wrote one. And now I read romance. It's probably about 50% of what I read now.
what I like about being here, it's kind of fun to see all the authors who are fans of each other. You know, we had people come in and out of the interview room and kind of cross paths and be like, I love your work, I love your work. And it seems like a very supportive community.
Definitely.
Is this your first, I assume it's not your first RWA?
No, this is my fourth. My first one was San Francisco before I was published, and this is now my fourth.
And what's your favorite thing about meeting readers?
Oh, I love meeting readers.
Or is there any like memorable encounter you've had with a reader at RWA?
There's a lot. It'd be hard for me to pinpoint one because I've met a lot of people, and you know, it's great meeting all of them. It's really nice to finally put a face to a name. One thing that's kind of funny now is with social media being as big as it is on Twitter, you know, somebody will come up to me and say, oh, we talk on Twitter, and I'll have to say, what's your Twitter name? Because I know people by their Twitter name and everything. So I think it's just great really to be able to put faces with the names.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Julie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll tell our readers to look out for A Lot Like Love.
Thanks.